Game week 9 then, and a lot of triple captainships active on Erling Haaland. I resisted it. I just hadn't seen enough from Man City of late to give me the confidence to go with that this early, even with Southampton as the opponent. As it turned out, I got lucky. Yeah, a few triple captain Haaland, just crazy. He got 8 shots in the box, his highest tally of shots in a single Premier League game this season. His XGI was 2.18. That's the highest tally in any game this season. Bear in mind, he's obviously got a couple of hat-tricks already. Yeah, I mean, you can think yourself very unlucky to come out of it with just a single goal and no bonus points. And even the fact that he didn't get any bonus points was caused by the fact that City at last kept a clean sheet, just the second of the season for them. And that's been an infrequent event as well. So Lewis, Gvardiol came out with a clean sheet. Elsewhere, Savio and Foden stood out, 0.92 and 0.9 XGI respectively. 5 chances created from Foden, but to be honest, he flattered to deceive. There wasn't enough there for me from Foden to convince me that I need to retain him going into game week 10. As for Haaland, I'll hold him for the next 2 away games, but certainly the plan to get rid ahead of game week 12 and switch to Palmer, yeah, that looks to be the way I'm going to go. Haaland's not much more than a Norwegian Wood at the moment, is he? Perhaps he was rattled by what he saw from Chris Wood for Forest at Leicester at the King Power on the Friday night. Chris Wood getting his 6th and 7th goal of the season to give chase in the Golden Boot race. Fantastic result, obviously, as a Forest fan, that. And yeah, I keep underestimating Chris Wood, but as you've seen, you've probably seen this stat, only Palmer and Haaland have scored more goals than Chris Wood since Nuno took charge. It's been a ridiculous rise for the former Burnley striker. Much maligned in FPL circles, of course, but should you be buying Chris Wood? But with the fixtures that we've got, West Ham, Newcastle and Ipswich, 3 of the next 4 at home. We go to Arsenal, but I think we'd give them a game as well. It's hard to back against Chris Wood. And also look at Sells. Didn't keep a clean sheet here, but got an assist. He's now on 42 points. The top scoring goalkeeper. Looks like the 4-5 to go for, as I've said a couple of weeks now. I've been trying not to talk up Forest, obviously as a Forest fan, trying not to show any bias. But I think that's gone against me. Why haven't I got Wood? Why haven't I got Sells? Stop sniggering at the back. Yeah, I've got to sort this out. And should you buy those 2? I'm struggling to make a case for not buying them, given the fixtures and form Forest have got. A game of little FPL consequence at Villa Park. Watkins registered 3 shots, 0.58 XGI, and Rodgers went off after 57 minutes. So real disappointment for owners of Villa assets. It was Bailey and Barkley who combined for the goal. No joy there, and no clean sheet either for Villa, denied by that late Evan Nilsson goal. Conser owners must be cursing, because he had a shot on goal saved by Travers, he had a potential assist missed by Watkins, and then Evan Nilsson's goal at the death denying him the clean sheet. I think he was on for bonus as well. And Villa, the second best defence for open play expected goals conceded, but only 1 clean sheet all season. Very frustrating, that, because it'd be lovely if we could bank on their defence, but it's just not happening for them at the moment. And I guess Rodgers' substitution a consequence of the European games. This is what we're going to see, particularly with Duran as an option to come off the bench and be effective for Villa. As for Bournemouth, their better fixtures are to come. Semenyo got his 4th booking of the season though for a dive. Really frustrating, because we don't want to lose him. City next, but we don't want to lose him for when those fixtures get better, when it's Brentford, Brighton and Wolves. So that's a concern for Semenyo owners and those who played him this week. More frustration. Brentford involved in another ridiculous game at the G-Tech Stadium. 4-3, they get the victory over Ipswich. Mbeumo, predictably the standout in terms of output. He got his 7th and 8th goals of the season. Continues to be I guess given the value he offers, as near essential as it gets, given he's on pens as well. But he only registered 0.33 XGI on penalty, so the chances weren't high quality. It was Visser who really superseded in there, 1.43 for Visser. Got a goal and an assist. I don't really understand, I mean, Lineker talked about this on Match of the Day. Don't really understand why he didn't get the 2 goals, which would have been a massive reward for those who went early on the differential. I'm a bit bitter about this, of course, because I had Visser really early this season, ready for this favourable run that Brentford had, including the Ipswich fixture, and then he got the injury, so I had to sell him. Will I go back to him now? I think if I didn't have other fires to fix, yeah, I mean, Visser in makes absolute sense, because they still have good fixtures. Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton and Leicester to come. Visser and Mbeumo, I mean, should combine for more points there. What we can't count on from Brentford is any defensive points. I mean, they're one of 3 teams without a clean sheet this season. And Flecken, although he has the most saves, I think it's, how many saves has he made now? 61 shots on target Brentford have conceded, 44 saves Flecken has made. So he has some value there, but he's now, what, 18 points behind Sells, who's obviously started in the same bracket. So I clearly made an error there going Flecken instead of Sells with the fixtures. And I just didn't see Brentford keeping clean sheets. This is the trouble. No matter what the opponent, no matter how good the fixture, they just look vulnerable. And as it was, they conceded 3 to Ipswich. Could have been more with Delap hitting the post. As for Ipswich, it's just the defensive errors. Their defence is so poor now. 7 big chances conceded in this game. You just can't do that. And so while they've got some goal threat, as they proved here, even though they started strangely with Delap on the bench, defensively Ipswich remain so woeful and remain whipping boy status, I'm afraid. A dramatic 2-2 draw at Brighton, where they just threw it away in the final minutes. That goal conceded in the last dying embers of stoppage time, where Reefer had 4 open and he gave the ball to Dyer. It's just incredible. I've never seen anything like that. That was for Kuna's goal. More on Kuna in a minute. Let's talk about Brighton first of all, because Welbeck got his 6th of the season. 4 shots in the box, I think, and an XGI of 0.48. Yeah, I mean, he continues to be good value, but with Brighton's fixtures, him and Matoma, I don't think we're going there, because it really stiffens up now for the Seagulls. As for Wolves, they're the ones we're looking at because of the fixture run that they've got now. It's Crystal Palace, Southampton, Fulham and Bournemouth, 3 of those 4 at home as well. And Kuna, as I mentioned with the goal here, this performance, of all the performances he's given this season, is the one that really sums up his appeal for me. He had 13 touches in the box, 5 shots in the box, 4 chances created, 0.53 XGI. He was at the centre of everything. So although Strand Larsen is playing that central striker, Kuna is the one for me. He's creative, he's got that goal threat, and he's just their talisman, I think. Obviously, Aït-Nouri is the other player we're looking at. He got his 3rd goal of the season to get Wolves back in this game. It's interesting that O'Neill started with 3 at the back and played Aït-Nouri wing back and then converted it in the second half, I believe. I'm not sure he's committed to that 3 at the back, which would be good for Aït-Nouri, but even so, even with their struggles, he's got 3 goals this season. With those fixtures to come, yeah, Kuna and Aït-Nouri have got to be targets. Calvert-Lewin's entry to the troll of the season carries on gathering pace, doesn't it, with his 5th successive blank at home in a 1-1 draw with Fulham. He did have the ball in the net, but rightly disallowed. And to add an insult to injury for Calvert-Lewin owners, Beto was the player who came off the bench to score Everton's equaliser, and now there's calls for him to start. So the Calvert-Lewin minutes could even be in doubt now. So if you went for the Everton striker over Chris Wood or even Jimenez, you really have had a bad run of variance. I mean, you could say that Calvert-Lewin has always been a streaky player, but yeah, I mean, 5 successive blanks is very harsh, considering the chances that have come his way. Elsewhere for Everton, McNeil got an injury late on. Dyche spoke after to say it didn't look too bad, so he looks okay if you're holding him. Similarly for Smith Rowe, he came out of it his first return in 4, but with the fixtures Fulham have got, he's definitely a hold as well. It's Brentford, Crystal Palace and Wolves in the next 3. And that's great for Jimenez. If you have the Mexican striker, he blanked here, his first blank in 5. But with those defences to come, he's very much a hold, and that could be more pain for those who went Calvert-Lewin over Jimenez a few weeks back. So that's it for the Saturday games, only 6 games, 4 to cover on Sunday. I've got 5 players left to go. 38 points, should be a green arrow. Really should be, considering where I was ranked at the start of the game week. And yeah, 5 players, including 3 for Spurs. Yeah, so Porro and Brennan were my transfers in. Relying on the ever-reliable Spurs. What could possibly go wrong? Good morning. Weather's awful, Spurs are awful, ever-reliable, as I said. Let's start at the Emirates though, where it was 2-2, and we got tiny reminders just of the value of Salah and Saka as heavy alternatives to Haaland. It's ironic, isn't it? I started the season back in both of them, then moved to Haaland 4 game weeks ago, and he's not rewarded me at all. And then Salah and Saka both come back yesterday with returns to show what they can offer. Salah, 3 shots in the game, 1 chance created, 0.46 XGI. Saka below that, just 2 shots, 0.24 XGI. But I think the key stat for me is that was 6 double-digit returns for Salah, whereas Saka has only failed to return in 1 of 8 starts. And that's just extraordinary consistency from the pair of them, which just underlines the fact that, you know, moving away from Haaland, we shouldn't be afraid of that, because we've got those two. Obviously, there's Son could come back from injury, and there's Palmer, who we're going to talk about when we look at the Chelsea game in a moment. Elsewhere in this game, I guess we've got to talk about the defences, because that's no clean sheets in 5 for the Arsenal defence, and they've lost Gabriel to what looks like a costly injury. We don't know yet the prognosis. Looks like a knee injury. Arteta wasn't giving us any detail, and of course we know not to rely on him too much for that. So that's a problem for FPL managers everywhere. And then Liverpool, it's just 1 clean sheet in 4 now for them. So the 2 top defences letting in goals of late, and that's typically what we've seen. We've only seen 2 clean sheets in the game week from City and Palace, and you know, it's beginning to point now where we're taking money out of our defences, I think, and looking instead to invest in those heavy hitters in midfield. Yeah, so Spurs predictably did let me down, and this was the other clean sheet of the game week. Palace getting their 2nd of the season and their 1st win of the season in what was it was a dire game really. Very few chances carved out, 0.83 and 0.7 the XG on show for both sides. And just not too much to talk about other than the fact that Mateta came back and got the winning goal, came back in the side with Nketiah dropped to the bench. That makes sense. Glasner's probably got that right now, and that's the way it goes. So Mateta's going to be perhaps an option from this point on, where he hasn't been really since the arrival of Nketiah. And Eze, the other player I mentioned, came out of an assist. At last, a return for Eze owners. He had 4 shots, 1 shot in the box, 0.42. Still second on shot volume, only to Semenyo amongst midfielders, but a high volume of those shots outside the box. But he's still dangerous. He could have come out with more. He had other chances. He had assists that perhaps didn't follow through. He had a potential penalty. Always looking lively. And of course, the fixtures are good now for Palace. It's Wolves and Fulham over the next 2. And if you own Eze, you'd be confident in some returns at last, I think, from him there, after that showing, and the fact that Palace have got their confidence back. As for Spurs, 3 of the next 4 at home, and that's a good job for me, because I've got Porro, Johnson and Solanke. Villa, Ipswich and Fulham, with City in that sandwich. What I saw, though, was absolutely dismal. I mean, Johnson was probably the standout. 3 shots in the box again, 0.32 XGI. Solanke, I mean, it's so alarming. I think he had 1 shot. And his XGI was below 0.1. He's been dismal over the last 3 games in terms of output, and I'm more than worried now about him. I've got other fires in my team, but if you haven't, then moving off Solanke to perhaps Wood, Jimenez, and we talked about Arteta coming back in now, as Cunha, of course, with the fixtures. Yeah, I guess you do keep Solanke for the fixtures, but I don't know. It's tempting to get rid given the output we've seen. It was a much better game at Stamford Bridge, 1.68 and 1.85 the XG on show from the 2 teams, Chelsea 2, Newcastle 1. And what we take from this again is Palmer's performance. I mean, he was actually quiet in terms of the data. Just had 1 shot and 1 chance created, 0.31 his XGI. He's 2nd lowest of the season so far. And it was strange as well, because Maresca surprised me by playing James left back and he put Palmer out on the left rather than out on the right. So this is the first time he's played more skewed to the left-hand side. He was a little bit deeper as well. Perhaps that did alter his output, but his performance was definitely encouraging. I mean, watching Chelsea play without him is a real worry, because he is absolutely outstanding. I mean, that pass for the opening goal was just incredible. That pass for Neto down the channel, squared it to Jackson for the goal. Superb play from Palmer. And then he converted from a defensive error for his goal in the second half. Let's talk about Jackson though. 0.60 XGI in this one shot, 3 chances created. He's just got 3 blanks in 9 starts now, Jackson. I mean, we started the season, really he was a much maligned character, wasn't he? He was not an asset that we really took seriously for our teams. But I talked about Solanke just now, about what are the alternatives, Cunha, Wood, Jimenez. Jackson's got to be in that bracket as well. If you can't stretch to Palmer immediately for game week 12, then I think you've got to cover Chelsea's fixtures by looking at Jackson. When we look at his expected minutes, and that was the concern, we thought Nkunku would take minutes off him. His actual average minutes per appearance is higher than Watkins, and yet we still consider Watkins there with the Duran threat, and he's far more expensive. So I think we've got to give Jackson a break. I think we've got to reconsider that he is an asset that we need to really take seriously, given the output that we've seen. As for Newcastle, I mean, Isak was the standout, 1.29 XGI in this, 3 shots, 1 chance created. Is he back? Is he going to add to our choices up front? I don't know, I think it's too soon to say. And I think with the Gordon injury, he got a calf injury and missed this game. Oh, it was a groin injury actually. So we don't know how long he's going to be out for. I mean, with him out, I think that really does detract from Newcastle's attacking output and Isak's potential. And then Sunday's final game to look at was West Ham 2, Manchester United 1, with a really soft penalty. And it wasn't a penalty, was it? Winning it for West Ham United. And, you know, according to the rumours this morning, that could be the end of Ten Hag. More on that in a minute, but just looking at the game, Bowen came out with 3 shots, including the penalty, took the spot kick because Paqueta was off at half-time, so he wouldn't normally have been on it. Perhaps Paqueta should have taken that. So a bit of fortune at last for Bowen owners, but they deserve it after he's lost the last couple of assists, which were kind of borderline decisions. Elsewhere in the game, Bruno's the player to talk about. I mean, he played that through for Dalot, and Dalot then somehow missed it. Played a pass to Garnacho. Garnacho hit the post in the first half. He had 5 shots, 3 chances created, Bruno, 0.74 XGI. He's had 10 shots in the last 2 game weeks, and yet his returns have been limited to 2 assists all season. I mean, very unfortunate again for his owners. A bit like Eze again, his lack of returns continues to frustrate. But of course, you know, if Ten Hag is facing the sack, then we've got to reassess. And the likes of Bruno, Garnacho, Højlund, and maybe even the defence could come into play. And the United could be a factor in our seasons. Certainly the next 3 of 4 are at home: Chelsea, Leicester and Everton. Then they've got Ipswich away in that as well. So it's a good run of fixtures. So if there is a change of guard at United, I think we've got to take them seriously again. So that's it from Game Week 9, and quite frankly, I'm glad to see the back of it. Another huge red arrow, 45 points, down to 3.4 million now. I mean, it's got to go down as a bad season, hasn't it? It's all down purely to that decision I made. Went without Haaland to start with, bad call. Moved to Haaland last 4 game weeks, bad call. I should have just stuck with my gut and gone without him and not made that wild card move. It's been an absolute unmitigated disaster. But I am enjoying this season more than last, because I actually feel like there's plenty of opportunity to catch up, because as I mentioned, we've got those heavy hitters: Salah, Saka, Son, Palmer. We've got players like Foden and De Bruyne we haven't even factored in yet. And you know, if Ten Hag does go, United come into the frame as well, so maybe Bruno comes alive again. I think this season, more than last, has a lot more variance, a lot more factors that can result in rank swings. So even if you are, like me, floundering so far this season, I think there's plenty of potential to catch up. It's early days, of course. I'm still going to stick to my plan, which was always move Foden to Salah next game week, captain Salah for a couple of weeks, and then look to Palmer in game week 12. I think I'm going to stick to that. I'm not going to waver on Palmer, because he's got 2 away games. But I definitely need to get on him for game week 12, which will mean that Haaland will make way. Yeah, it's got to happen, I think. I've got to make some radical changes. I've got to make up ground, and I've got to catch Az. Hope you enjoyed this video. It's getting worse, the weather here, so I've got a scarper. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, and I'll see you on BlackBox soon.